Hi, I'm Brad, and with me I have.
Hi, I'm Andrew Sculley. I'm the CEO of eMagin Corporation.
And what kind of products do you guys work on?
We make micro displays for near eye applications.
All right, cool. So like AR, VR stuff.
Yes,
All right.
and other applications like medical, industrial, and some defense.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, I've talked about you guys a lot on the channel. My viewers know. You guys have a very special way of manufacturing display that you think will improve brightness for OLED microdisplays. You want to go in to talk a little bit about that first?
Well, if I take one step back, we design the silicon wafer, we fab that outside because that's something that other people do well.
Right.
And then we bring it in, we put the anode down, put the OLED down, cathode, seal, and package it. So that's today, it's mostly, I didn't say, but mostly it's white with color filters like everyone else. And in the white with color filter, you have to put the color filters on as well. So I didn't mention that. But when we talk to people in the industry, they all say to us, we need a bright display. And I've heard some people say, you don't need a bright display for a VR headset because it's dark in the headset. But they want to have absolutely no motion artifacts. So they only want the display light to come out 10% of the frame, or persistence, as it was Oculus coined that term a long time ago. So they only want it on 10%. That means you need 10 times the brightness, no matter what. And then the optics are not 100% efficient. So you need even higher brightness. So we said to ourselves, how do you get higher brightness? And the obvious answer is eliminate the color filters. Oh, that means you have to directly pattern OLED at these fine pixel pitches. And as you may know, today, if you look at a cell phone, the space between the subpixels is 25 microns. We can't have that. We need something like 1 micron. So we had to eliminate the color filter and invent a methodology for patterning at those very fine pixel pitches, 10 plus or minus,
Right.
and with a micron gap.
Yeah, and what was the number you recently publicly got with the DPD
Well,
process?
we had a industry day with a few people who were very interested to go to New York City after being cooped up for a year and a half or something, and they saw it, and we actually measured it there with them, and maybe one of them measured it too. It came out to be over 10,000. It was 11,300, and they were very impressed.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
really awesome. Yeah, so I know you kind of went in about this, but like when I talk about your guys' 10,000 nits display, again, I have a lot of people who are VR everyday VR users, and they still don't really understand like where is all that light? Like 10,000 directly to the eye to them sounds dangerous, but where is all that light going? And even for a VR headset.
Yes, well, in that case, there's two things to think about. One is I only have the light on for 10% of the frame, so the other 90% is black, and your eye will average that over the frame. So it's instead of 10,000, let's say there's a spot on the display, I want a 10,000 nits. Well, at 10% on, it's only 1,000 nits. And then the other is, how efficient is your optic? As we know, optics are not 100% efficient. So if the optic's 50% efficient, oop, now it's 500 to the eye. If the optic's 20% efficient, now it's 200 to the eye. So part of it goes into the optic, and part of it is because not on all the time. So your eye averages. And the other, why do you need that? So what did the people tell us? People being companies for whom we have talked about the technology, they said that if you don't have that, and you have a fixed object in your view and you spin your head, you're going to see a blur if you don't have a duty cycle less than 100%.
Totally makes sense. Have you, so you guys have been working on, I mean, OLED microdisplays for a while, and you are now just seeing consumer companies look toward the technology. Are you noticing that when you talk about optical efficiency, that companies are seemingly looking to more inefficient optics as time goes on, which makes you guys even more important?
Well, there's two sides to that, of course. They'd like more efficient optics, but they're concentrating on other things like, I don't want a big bulky thing on my head. It looks, I'm a scuba diver, it looks like a dive mask.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want it small and compact. Ooh, then the optics get tougher
Yeah.
and they get less efficient. So that's one thing. And they don't want to fool around with changing the optic. They'd rather, hey, can you give me a brighter display? That's the idea.
It just sounds like the optics industry and what's required just kind of give you guys a free pass almost because you guys been working on this. That's great. I guess for people who are not understanding the difference between an OLED microdisplay compared to a standard OLED, maybe we can go into basics of what that difference is and like maybe the benefits of a microdisplay can have over, a glass backplane display.
Well, if I'm allowed to pick OLED for a second. So the OLED, the issue is that you have a 25 micron gap. Maybe that's improving, great. In fact, our direct patterning can help even those big displays, but you've got a 25 micron gap, so it's hard to get all those pixels in to have a 4,000 resolution display per eye using an OLED cell phone display. So that's a disadvantage. Remember we talked about that dive mask?
Yeah.
Well, this would be even worse.
All right.
So that's the advantage of a micro display. You want it small, compact.
Fantastic.
And also with the LCD is a little better in terms of how many pixels per inch you can get than an OLED, but still nowhere near what we do. So it's going to be a big headset.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And so far I've seen no one put, well, maybe somebody has like 4,000 by 4,000 per eye.
Mm-hmm. I think Inilux just showed off a LCD at 3.2K per eye, which that's still a prototype as well. But yeah, you still suffer from like the contrast and everything with LCDs and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. One thing though that seems to be approaching for the VR industry, maybe for the near term, is we're seeing a lot of mini LED coming in VR headsets where they're having like local dimming and everything. Do you feel that even with this advent of mini LED that OLED microdisplays are still way better even with contrast?
Well, when you say mini LED, and you said it sounded like if I go to the TV example, the problem with LCD is the contrast. So they picked a bunch of backlights and they dim the backlights when that section is not very bright.
Right.
So mini LEDs sounds like you're saying that. So that's one solution. The problem is still you need a tiny display.
Yeah.
So how are you going to put all those mini LEDs? You might as well take one step back and say, why don't I put one LED for each subpixel?
Mm-hmm.
Red, green, blue.
Yeah.
Then I can have a real LED. And the problem with that so far is that it's the smaller you make those LEDs, the less efficient they become. And the smaller you make the LEDs, now I got to put a whole bunch of them on there. And I did see a presentation here the other day where they said, company said they were a 99.99 or 999, something like that, efficient. Well, if you're putting millions of things on, right, if it's 4K by 4K, that's 16 million.
Yeah.
And now you're going to multiply by 3. And if you're a small percent off, you're going to have a lot of pixels that don't work.
Right.
So we need to get manufacturing of that under control. And that's many years away, I think. And why do I say this? Because we talk to these people. We're interested in this too, because I don't care what kind of microdisplay we make, whether it's OLED or inorganic LED. And we've also been asked to design backplanes by LED companies, and we can do that.
Wow. So it's clear that the LCD-based displays are just continue to be super cheap, super easy to get, whereas micro LED is just, there's still a lot of steps to getting toward that. And as you even said earlier, that LCD are getting higher PPIs, they're finding new tricks to get that. What do you think is going to change, maybe let's just say the supply chain's mind that, hey, XR, we need micro OLED compared to just pushing the LCD barrier further.
Well, you've got a long way to go to make the LCD at 4,000 pixels in a small space. That's an issue.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the cheapness. So, well, for the company that we did the 4K, we did the following. We said, I mean, they said to us, how cheap can you make this? So we worked with a foundry. We worked with a foundry on a methodology so that they could make the wafers cheaper, and they did a high volume estimate for us. And then we said, well, we're not talking about eMagin's tools. Let's talk about a very large consumer line for making these displays. And when we did that, we estimate the cost of this by what's the tack time, what's the yield, et cetera, et cetera. And then we came out to very close to what that company wanted. So that's what has to happen. And the grant of $39 million that we have for a new tool, now that's not a consumer millions per month tool, but it will demonstrate that the technology at 10,000 is manufacturable at scale, and for that matter, in our program to get to 2x that and 3x that that tool can do those, and that'll prove that that's manufacturable also.
I'm sitting here smiling, not it's just because my community knows I love OLED microdisplay technology. I think it's just such a, I do agree with you guys. I think it's just the next big thing for VR. And when you guys talk about this, I just get really excited. So anyway.
Me too.
So yeah, let's talk about your own personal design. I guess we have the 4K
Oh
here.
yeah, it's on, by the way. I don't know why he's got it blinking.
I'll get some footage of that in a little bit, but yeah, the 4K OLED microdisplays, a very specialized OLED microdisplay. I know you guys talk about DPD, but when I talk to my audience about the 4K, that one, I mean, the backplane itself is really special. You guys had to do a lot to even design that. Do you want to go into some details?
Well, let me just say one thing, is that in a foundry, the size of one shot per unit or per display is, what is it, 26 by 33. So if the display is bigger than that, then you need multiple shots per display. And we've done a design that can do that. This one is, we just wanted to do quickly, so it doesn't have that advantage. But we also made one other advantage to lower the cost of the wafer. So it can be done.
That's great. And the foundry you guys are working with, they can do the stitching at scale, most likely?
Yeah. The other thing is, for stitching, everybody thinks that, oh, I'm going to see something. You know, if I screw up, a straight line's going to be a little bit up on it. It's partway through the display. Well, note that the foundry isn't the issue. It's us, because we put down the anode. If the anode has an issue, then you're going to see it.
Yeah.
So no issue was what we have been told. Well, I didn't see it either. And then the other thing is the foundry, you do have lanes that where it's going to be stitched, so you have to make sure the transistors, capacitor, etc., fit in that subpixel, even though the lane's a little bigger. So we did that too.
Wow. So I guess another person, like, when you guys are, I'm not very well understanding of the silicon processes, but do you guys, when you're mass producing something like the 4K, is that like a more older node, or is that more?
Yeah, they're older nodes in this case. The very high brightness one was on 180. If you want to do something like you're putting a big square in a round circle, right? Don't you want the circle to be bigger?
Right.
So a 300 millimeter wafer is better. And then you have to change the node. Oh, did you say you wanted MIPI? Now you have to change the node. But you don't have to go down to 10 nanometers or 7 or whatever the heck people are getting to. You're way up there.
Right. That also just, when that also makes the cost down, just being on the older node.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good question. So, the 4K display, I mean, when you talk about 4K per eye, that is a lot of bandwidth just in general.
Yeah.
How do you guys look to solve that issue?
Well, remember, we make the display and they tell us what they need. We did something on that display, what I won't tell what it is because
Right.
we did it for the company
Of
so
course.
that we could lower the bandwidth.
Right.
And you might think, well, I should do a foveated display. And you know, there's a company that does that with 2 different displays, a foveated display and eye tracking. Well, companies have told us that the eye tracking is good, but if you put the center that has the full resolution and around that doesn't, you want to make the center variable, it gives you most of that benefit. And why is that? Because when I see something over here in my peripheral vision, first thing I do is move my eyes and then my head goes. So I never get out of that center region.
Huh, yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about that.
Well, you have to think about, rarely do you do like,
Yeah, exactly.
strain your eyes to look over here.
And especially when you take into account that most HMDs, even for consumer, are not even that huge FOV yet. Like it's usually
Yeah.
around 100 right now, for example. So that makes a ton of sense. I don't know if you can answer this, but display driver IC, I see a lot of micro OLED companies have different opinions on this, whether it should be directly integrated or separate. Do you guys have any comments on that?
No. A lot of companies have different opinions. It depends on what it is you're doing.
All right.
Right.
That's a good enough answer for me. So I think when you guys introduced the 10K nits display and when talking about the 4K display behind us, that prototype was around 4,000 nits, correct? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it was less than that because it was done long ago,
Right.
and we hadn't reached the 10,000 yet. So, and we only ran very few of them, one wafer actually. And the reason we did that is because we have other projects which we have to get done.
Right. Yeah.
So
So I know also I've read some of your patents and you guys talk about your color enhancing DPD, which, you know, you got the high brightness, which is great, but you can improve the color gamut. I
yeah,
forget what you said the percentage is for that color enhance. And what you it sounds like you have an extra layer on top for the color enhance. Is that how it
it
works?
depends on what patent you're talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I guess my question really is I've seen some patents from you guys as well, but other companies, and I'm curious. We're seeing kind of a new trend. Samsung just this year is mass producing QD OLED, where they're trying to do color conversions with quantum dots.
Yes.
So I'm curious what you guys think. Is quantum dots ever going to make it to micro displays at some point, or is there a lot of difficulty
Well,
doing that?
the interesting thing to me is when I looked at that, it was blue emitting OLED, which is the worst OLED,
All right.
if you will. And they were converting it with down conversion quantum dots to green and red, and then the blue went right through.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you would do that and not directly pattern,
All right.
because still there's some loss.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the blue is not the best emitter in OLED.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I think we did everything that I wanted to do for this interview. Thank you so much. There is one final question.
Uh-oh, this is the tough one.
It's always the tough one last. There was recently an article published to you guys about SID, and in the examples for what you guys had for DPD, it said you guys have tested DPD with 2K, 4K, and 3K. Is there any comments? I don't think I've seen any history of a 3K display. It might have been a mistake.
The only one I would think of is that one over there is a 1920 by 1200.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it probably was a mistake. I think it was written by Sri or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
19, so 2K, oh, we've done other ones too, like an SXGA, whatever the customer wants.
Yeah.
So this is WUXGA, 2K, 4K, and then there's a few other ones, but none are between the 2K and the 4K.
Okay, cool. I guess I just want to give you the floor. Is there anything else that you want to tell my viewers about your technology or your company that you feel we didn't catch up on?
Well, the only thing is, it's very interesting being here now. I've had people whom I've met many times in my display industry life, and they say to me that, hey, now it's here, the AR VR.
Yeah.
We had to wait for so long, but now it's here.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very interesting. I'm glad to hear that positiveness.
Me too. Otherwise, if it wasn't here, you wouldn't have some weird YouTuber interviewing you. So
That's probably true. Not only a weird one, a very reasonable one, and a nice one too.
I'm glad. Again, thanks so much. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay.
Check out eMagin, their technology, eMagin.com, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want more interviews like this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.